Whatever today is, September 5th, Plan Commission meeting to order. Brandy, would you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Spire.
Here.
Colhane. Here. Goletsky.
Present.
Kays.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
And Brink and Dargis Johnson are absent. We have a quorum. This will be a majority vote, so we have 6 members here. So it'll be 4. God, every time.
Perfect. Number 3 is invitation for public comment, participant submittal. If you have something that is not on the agenda that you want to tell, please let Brandy know, and we'll get to you at the end. Number 4, approval of the agenda, please. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to approve the agenda with the following amendment, moving item 6C to the beginning of the regular agenda.
We have an amended agenda. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Oletsky. Any further discussion on that agenda amendment? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So C will go to the front of number 6. So number 5, approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Oh, well, we amended it. Did we approve it at the same time?
No, the agenda you amended.
Agenda got
We've,
amended.
it's been amended. Do we have to have a second vote to approve it? Robert's rules? Probably.
Say yes.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment.
Second, I will second that motion.
We have a motion and second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to 5 now, approval of the minutes.
So moved. Approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion about the minutes? Did they pass muster, Diana?
They did.
Good. All those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 6C, we're starting with C. The agenda was amended. So this is commission consideration of ordinance number 24-19. We're going to talk about administration and enforcement of revised ordinances in Watertown. Please explain what's going on, Brandy.
All right. Thank you, Liam. So as I've shared with the board previously, staff will be bringing forward ordinance amendments to Title 21. And this is the beginning of that whole production that we'll be embarking on this fall and winter. So the administration and enforcement portion of Title 21, which is the zoning ordinance, these amendments that are proposed and before you today here for consideration are all in regards to mostly the makeup of the boards that you sit on today, Board of Adjustment and Plan Commission. And now it will be Planning Commission, hopefully. So we have had internal discussion here, and there have been clerical changes made to the ordinance that's proposed today, and that's really just to be in compliance with state statute. The main things that staff is proposing that we amend and change, and there's a lot of clarifying happening too. So we are better defining what the terms are and what term that you can have a three-year term. So then you have a term limit now, just so you get people that are very public service minded, where they don't know, they never want to step down. And so then this way we do have the term limit, which does allow for other opportunity of community members participating on these volunteer boards. And then we also, staff is proposing that we eliminate alternates and still have a 7-member board. And then obviously, as discussed, the voting would still be the same for Board of Adjustment. When it is a variance, it is 2/3 of the board members present, which the quorum will still be 5. The board itself will still be 7. And then the conditional uses will be the majority. And then plan commission obviously is just the majority and the quorum is less as well. But the idea behind that is we've seen with the makeup, we really want to encourage the attendance. So we've also added an attendance policy into ordinance that a board member that is appointed is taking the commitment seriously, and because the consistency is important. And what staff has witnessed or experienced is that you get people playing roulette where they are not liking the makeup of the board one time and then they pull an agenda, or they're calling and asking who is going to be on the board, which is also because everybody has been on the board for a very long time. So people have found the way people vote predictable, or they are trying to assume. So that's another good reason for having a term limit, that you're getting that, you're switching out board members, so it's keeping everybody, honest and transparent. So that is the reason behind eliminating alternates. And we did look back at other communities. I can pull the email up. I just put that together this afternoon. But communities are all across the board on their makeups of the board. Some have no alternates, some do have alternates, some only have alternates for the Board of Adjustment. And that's something that we could consider because the Board of Adjustment has higher requirements for voting. So, and that somebody could step in for a board member that is absent, but we really do want to avoid that because it's just, it eliminates consistency, which is what we're looking for.
Mr. Chair, could I just have a quick comment on that?
Yeah, sorry. I forgot who the chair was. Yes.
I'm in agreement with nearly everything that Brandy is saying. I think, specifically when it comes to the Planning Commission, I find no need to have alternates to the Planning Commission because the Planning Commission is a recommendation board. There's no final determination with the Planning Commission. And I think that's a very astute observation that we need to get rid of that. But the Planning Commission also serves as the Board of Adjustment. And the only thing that I'm advocating for the use of alternates to the Board of Adjustment is for in those situations when we have a hard time getting 5 people here to act on a variance, or if there are 7 of us here and all of a sudden Liam has to excuse himself because he has a conflict of interest because he's representing a party or a neighbor that's in the audience, or by doing that, you're reducing the full opportunity for due process to that applicant that's asking for a full board to happen. And the only reason I'm saying is that right now, in the last year, there have been plenty of times when we haven't been able to pull 5 people together out of our 7 members, especially in the summertime, and that's when we're usually the busiest because people are on vacations and what have you. And we meet twice a month, and sometimes that is a big ask for the general public to be wanting to participate. And so my recommendation would be to take the alternate outs of the Planning Commission, but have those alternates from the Board of Adjustment. And you could even do like some communities, you could turn around and you could put a city council member to be that primary alternate to the Board of Adjustment. And that way the flip-flopping, the flexibility or something like that could be maybe leveled out. Just a thought.
And we also, I like that thought because we're also eliminating liaisons. So that way then if a council member, because it's good that there's involvement and awareness. So if they wanted to attend to educate themselves anyway, then they also could serve as an alternate.
If I could, Mr. Chair, clarity on that last comment. The option for the mayor to appoint alternates is struck from this ordinance, but it is still part of the Home Rule Charter and the policies and procedures available to them. So the ability to still have alternates still exists, not alternates, sorry, liaisons. I just want to make that point of clarity. It was being struck from here, but that opportunity still exists in other language in the city governance policies that we have in place. If I could give a little higher level background on why we dove into this section right away. As you all know, our board member terms, I believe all are 100% expired as of right now. I don't think anybody is actively appointed. So this was an urgent section to address the structure of the board, the appointment process. We've revised that section of this ordinance to clearly define when and how board members will be reappointed or replaced through new appointments. We've established a timeline in this ordinance that requires first meeting in December at the council. The mayor would make those appointments and get verification from the council, and then any seats that were to be turned over, those new board members would become effective the first planning commission meeting in January. So it follows the calendar year. Things make sense. They run a little more smoothly, and something easier for staff to help track as well and gear up for the application process through that calendar year for board terms that are expiring. So that's another one of the focuses of this amendment, these amendments in this section deals with. And then when it comes to the BOA and whether we have alternates or not, I don't discredit Commissioner Kay's comments at all. The due process of the Board of Adjustment is a critical component and function of that board. And we want to make sure that we're giving that right and opportunity to the applicants and not negating it by not having an adequate amount of people here. So that point's very well taken. I think, one of the options we could have is to keep the alternates for the BOA, not have them for the Planning Commission. The odd thing here in Watertown is that it's the same board. So if you pull an alternate in for the BOA, it's likely they're going to be needed for the Planning Commission, because if somebody's not here for the BOA, they're not going to be here for the Planning Commission either, more than likely. So you might inherently still end up having alternate for both board, or if you only have it for the BOA, you're not going to have a Planning Commission meeting that day. Something to consider. One of the other mindsets, again, I don't have a hard position from a staff standpoint on this regarding alternates, is, we have a Park and Rec Advisory Board. We have an airport board. We meet month in and month out with those boards, and seldom do we have a quorum issue. I'm not going to accuse this board of this, but anytime you have alternates, I think it inherently creates a little bit of a relaxed atmosphere on attendance and a little bit more inherent opportunity for people to miss here and there, not be a big deal because we're covering our bases otherwise with the extra people. If you were to remove that cushion, it might, just like the airport board, just like Park and Rec board, the board members may very well acknowledge that role becomes all the more earnest in their responsibility to attend those meetings and meet those attendance goals. Just a point to consider. Not a hard, fast reason on why to get rid of alternates, but just a point to consider.
Mr. Chair, one quick follow-up. I think staff has done an excellent job on defining terms and appointments and education. I think that's all wonderful. And I think on the Planning Commission, again, if we have 7 members appointed, we only need 4 to show up to handle Planning Commission business. So there should never be a reason that we'd have less than 4. And so I think take them out of there. I think rather than striking the city council shall appoint, mayor and city council shall appoint to, I would just leave that language in there, but change the shall to may, so that you can make up your minds as you go moving forward, whether or not some mayors and some city councils might think we don't want to. Take the mandatory language out and make that permissive, and that still gives the city council and mayors flexibility to make those appointments when and if they think they need them.
And so just with internal discussion that was taking place today, that's where I landed with this, with the Board of Adjustment, with this language here that I have highlighted on the screen. And you had suggested, that, but just where the discussion kind of was going, I just had that prepped for our review.
And I think if if I may add to that too, I think the concern is less about meeting the requirements for a quorum and more about the heightened requirements for the 2/3 of the membership for variances specifically, which is substantially higher than, actions on the plan commission.
Right. Yep.
This is marked for a public hearing. Is there any more staff overview before we get to the public hearing portion?
I just wanted to point out too, with the addition of the attendance requirement. So just so everyone was aware, because this is new, this entire section. So commission members shall be deemed present at a meeting upon taking roll call. Okay. The quorum's established, and then for absences, may occur for a number of valid reasons such as illness, family emergency, or work-related obligations. The member is responsible to inform the chair or appropriate city staff prior to the meeting if they are unable to attend, preferably at least 48 hours in advance to help ensure a quorum of the commission. These absences will count against the member's attendance requirement, which the attendance requirement will be 75% of the meetings within a calendar year, because that is in line with what city council requirements are as well. Obviously, it's just preferable the 48 hours in advance, but emergencies happen. So that it just adds at least some level of detail, because we don't have bylaws for our boards and whatnot of really spelling out some of these things, and it's just good to have to set a standard. And then we have added like a dismissal procedure if there's really an issue with somebody's attendance, because it's important and it's a commitment and public service. Obviously, it's a much appreciated role that you fill, as it is unpaid and you are donating your time, but it's all for the good of Watertown. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Brandy. Thank you, city staff. Thank you, Mayor. These look like fantastic adjustments and changes, very in-depth and really, really nicely done. There is a public hearing today. I'll open it up to public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to talk about city ordinances in the crowd? Anybody online? Oh, the mayor does. Okay.
I'm not sure if I'd be a member of the staff or a member of the public on this one. And I want to thank Community Development Manager Hanton and Public Works Director Von Eye. Deputy Mayor Tupper and I met with them to discuss some of these proposed amendments. Unbeknownst to me, we were both working independently upon these. And then once I found out that Brandy was doing this, we meshed, and it's like a lot of the ideas were the same. Not all of them, however. I want to just bring one thing up to the council that I proposed that Brandy wasn't in favor of. I'm kind of neutral on it. One of the ideas, so city council, technically, we only have one official meeting every month. However, everyone knows that we always have 2 city council meetings, but in ordinance, only one is listed. I was wondering if we wanted to give that option to the board, because it's like, to increase the attendance, perhaps the 2 times every month is what's drawing some people away. Community Development Manager Hanton made a really good point that a lot of times you don't want to wait so long for a monthly meeting, so that is definitely something to be concerned about. But I was also wondering as if there was the flexibility to call another meeting if something was pressing. You could do that without mandating 2 times a month. That was just one thought that I had to possibly increase attendance, or if it's a slow month or something like that. But you can already cancel if there's nothing there. And then in regards to everyone's membership being out, I will take ownership of that. By the time we were working on it, we wanted to get the website application up and running, and that took longer than expected. And then also, once we got that going, then we had the recodification coming. So there was no point making new appointments during those processes. So I will take ownership of that. I just wanted to raise that for discussion, because I want to encourage discussion from you people, because you know better than what I do on that. And in regard to having like a city council person being one of the alternates, that's a fine idea. I mean, so anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Is there anybody else from the public that wants to talk about these proposed ordinance changes? Anybody on the interweb? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and we can have board.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I think there are a couple issues, and I've had some discussions with staff about this. And I made my first recommendation that if we move forward on 2102, number 1, establishing procedure of the Board of Adjustment, the proposed language is, of the first paragraph is striking everything after thereto. I would like to see everything reinstated and change the word shall to may in letter 1.
And
Under-
Todd, if all of the changes that you proposed, I do have added on here. So and I know that as far as for the record, that if you want to go through all of them,
I would just say that one there, then there's a change in 1A, and maybe Brandy has it up there, but where it says the Board of Adjustment shall propose, follow, strike out, adopt the rules, I would recommend changing that to follow and, shall adopt and follow the rules. The adopt language is consistent with enabling legislation.
got that, yep.
Adopt and follow. The last sentence of letter A in the first paragraph, except second to last statement, says the chair or the chair designee may administer oaths and compel the attendance of witnesses. I am recommending that is retained to be consistent with enabling legislation by statute.
Got it.
The last sentence of paragraph 2 under A says, and shall be immediately filed in the office of the finance officer. I would say change that, retain that to say, and shall be immediately filed in City Hall.
You think City Hall, or do you think Office of the Community Development Division?
It doesn't matter. The statute says it needs to be filed in the office of the board. You can determine where that office is administratively, or you can stipulate it by statute.
I would, for that one, I'd prefer something more general, because if it specifically shifts throughout the building of the offices of where the board performs their governance, whether it's at the community development office or in a public works office or in the finance office, I like the general reference of being housed at City Hall. I think that covers us. So if it changes later on, we don't have to come back and do an ordinance amendment.
And then,
Sounds good.
then the other change, proposed change, which I think is important, is under, 210202, variances, all the way down to letter E on page 31 of 37 of our staff report. There it says in the last sentence of letter E, notwithstanding the foregoing, conditional uses shall be determined by an affirmative vote of at least 2/3 of the present and voting members. In order to be consistent with state law, I would recommend that would say shall be determined by a majority vote, striking of at least 2/3 to say of the present and voting members.
And Todd, what I did altogether with that concern was struck it from
Put it in it.
being, and then it's individually now. So we put what the vote required for Board of Adjustment, or conditional uses and variances.
Okay.
So
Thank
broke
you.
that up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a better idea yet.
Yeah, because I think it was messy trying to combine it under one,
Right.
one heading or whatever
Right.
number.
Mr. Chair, so if we were to move forward, I would propose an amendment to recommend approval of 2419 with the statements that I have made and any representation that staff has put together.
Perfect. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And this is, now that I have two Roberts experts in the room, do we amend it and then we vote on it?
Motion to amend,
Okay, so this is the motion to amend the proposed ordinances, and then we'll have a follow-up motion. Okay, so this is, we've got a motion and a second. Any further board discussion regarding the amendments proposed?
Yes, this is Ford. Todd, did I hear you say that you discussed this stuff with staff and left them with some information
I was
or
part of,
recommendation?
I was part of, in my review, received, like everyone, we received this yesterday. And in my review and in what I do for a profession, I was finding inconsistencies with some of the draft language with what I do in enabling legislation. I had a conversation with staff, brought it to their attention. They did an internal review and have agreed with me that they probably need to make those appropriate changes.
Yes, and staff appreciates that because, so that's like any, bringing the concerns ahead of the meeting so we're able to look into it. And he actually went above and beyond because of his background of citing the state statutes to be leery of, but then that actually is very efficient and we appreciate that. When concerns can be
Yeah.
addressed prior to a meeting.
Yes, I certainly agree with that. I do have a problem with only have had about 24 hours to review this. I think there's so many changes, additions, deletions, and questions. I personally spent a lot of time yesterday and today reviewing it, but I don't think I had adequate time to do this justice, so I will just be abstaining on my vote. I don't feel I have had enough time to do a thorough examination of it.
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner Ford. Any other board member, commission member discussion regarding the proposed amendments to the ordinance?
So just to follow up on Todd's recommendation there, members are appointed for 3 years, and then you want to, your proposal is to change to shall versus, or may versus, shall. And so there's going to be a permissive, either it's going to continue in perpetuity unless there's an affirmative, reappointment.
The way I read that, enabling legislation, what's being proposed here is that we will not have we will not have alternates to the planning commission, but the city council and the mayor may choose to appoint alternates. If they choose not to appoint alternates, our 7 members are 7 members. If they choose to appoint an alternate, they can approve that alternate and they can follow the term that's in the other section of the statute of the enabling legislation.
Only for a Board of Adjustment.
Only for Board of Adjustment.
Yep.
So to Commissioner Spire's question there, I had the same question for a point of clarity. The shall to may refers to the appointment of alternates for the BOA,
That's it.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Plan Commission, there will be no alternates.
And there might not be any for the Board of Adjustment either. That would be at the druthers of the mayor and the city council.
Yep.
Thank you. Good question,
Yep, very good.
Commissioner. Any other further discussion regarding the amendment to the proposed amended ordinance?
I agree with the approach there. I do like leaving it open to the mayor and city council to make the determination on that, but leaving it open. I do like also the concept of having the potential for a city council person to potentially serve as an alternate for the BOA.
Thank you, Commissioner Dolly. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Go
can I
ahead.
get a point of clarity on that last comment? We are not adding language that stipulates that a council member will be an alternate, correct? That's just floated as an idea at this point, correct?
It's my understanding.
Okay,
Yep.
That's my
There's
understanding as well.
nothing in ordinance.
Yep.
all right.
We can appoint a kindergartner if we needed to.
All right, I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Just a reminder, we're voting on Todd's amendments, and then we will vote to approve or not approve it to send it to the city council a second. So this is just for Todd's amendments. We've got a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Brandy.
All right. Ford.
Abstain.
Dolly.
Yes.
Kays.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Colheim.
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Motion passes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, 1 abstaining. So I will request a motion.
Action on the motion as amended.
Action on the motion is amended.
Motion to approve.
And that motion has already been made. So did you guys want to do discussion at all?
Was there any other follow-up? I think we kind of addressed the underlying motion at the time we were doing it. I know Diana indicated that she's intends on abstaining. Any other further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving? Aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, motion passes, one abstention. So that brings us back to the regular agenda of 6A, Commission consideration of ordinance number 2421, amending the zoning map of 5 North Lake Drive.
All right. Thank you, Liam. If you want me to take it away. And just a quick plug here too, if anyone has interest in serving on a board, you go to our city website and right on the top, you go to government, boards and committees. And then when you scroll down, right here is where you apply. So if anyone has interest, please check that out.
Are you, good question. So as our terms expire, are we going to, do you want us to reapply if we have interest one more time? Is that what we're going to want to do?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So that was my short advertisement right there.
And
Oh, and-
thank you for doing that. And for the existing members, it would be okay if you just emailed me and let me know. And then I would put that as an official application to be reconsidered, so.
Sounds good.
And the intent is not to get rid of everyone, it's just to get some different timing on the appointments. And also, I did have a discussion with one person who was on the Board of Adjustment Plan Commission, and he felt like he was obligated to stay on, and I don't want it to feel like a life sentence for any of you. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Along that same line, you'll note in the amendments, we did present a staggered term as we roll out a new appointment here at the end of the year. And so there'll be 2 board members whose appointments will be for 1 year, 3 board members whose appointments will be for 2 years, and then the other 2 board members whose appointment will be for 3 years. And then,
good.
of course, from there forward, we'll get on that cycle to replace him in a staggered fashion.
Very smart. That way you
update.
don't end up wiping out an entire board at one time. Cool. Well, thank you, guys. Very, very good work. Back to the regular agenda, 6A.
All right.
5 North Lake Drive, Brandy.
Okay, thank you. So this is a rezone request for the property that you all are familiar with, probably adjacent to Pheasant Lane. And now that we have allowed access onto North Lake Drive, this rezone request is adjacent. This is currently zoned R1, and the property owners, Douglas and Jacqueline Legge, are proposing to rezone it to RG. They own the property to the east that was a part of the rezone to an RG district previously. They have interest now in acquiring this lot that they also want. They've recently acquired the lot to the west, which is why it wasn't included in the rezone previously. So now they want to extend the zoning designation of the RG to that lot to be able to have the opportunity to build a residential garage. Something to note, and then this is actually the precursor to another ordinance amendment that is in front of you today, is the change to the RG district petition requirements, because it's just written in an odd fashion that it almost encourages tension within a neighborhood, that we are requiring property owners to get signatures from their neighbors if they're able to come forward with a request or not. And then there's language in there that gives them the out anyway, that if they don't get all the signatures, that they can come to the plan commission and appeal regardless. So it just feels like a silly, unnecessary conflict inflicting situation. So, and it's not, we don't make any other zoning designation perform that type of signature solicitation for their petitions. So that's a subsequent ordinance amendment that we are proposing to strike as well. But just wanted to be upfront about that. They were able to obtain 40% of the immediately adjacent landowner signatures, and which they need 55%, so close. And then they receive 54% but need 55% for property owners within 250 feet. But like I said, this is the stipulation here that it says if an applicant cannot acquire all signatures required, they may appeal to the Plan Commission. So here we are. And the RG district does not allow for living quarters. They can still have sanitary and water hookup if they desire. The access will come from North Lake Drive. We've discussed that with the property owners. Because if they were wanting to access Pheasant Lane, which they did previously when they constructed a residential garage, that was constructed, the building permit was issued in 2016, and at that time, they were allowed to access an unimproved right-of-way at Pheasant Lane, which is not allowed in engineering design standards or city ordinance. So today, we would not allow another building permit to be issued and access Pheasant Lane unless Pheasant Lane was improved to a local residential street section, because obviously encouraging access on an unimproved right-of-way is not what should be happening in city limits. So they would be, they could either improve Pheasant Lane, and again, that would be, having to work with adjacent landowners, or access North Lake Drive now that that annexation resolution has been approved and lifted by City Council to give these properties adjacent to Pheasant Lane on the north side the ability to access North Lake Drive. And that is obviously with the stipulations of having the turnaround so they can enter North Lake Drive facing forward, and then also making sure that the bike trail is still reconstructed in a way that it is meeting engineering design standards for the slope, so that we're not creating hills when a driveway is cut in. So they might have to cut additional length out of the bike trail to be able to still maintain that percent required for the grade of the trail. So with that, I will stand by for any questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Casey.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut out here before you guys get to a vote on this, but I agree that by almost it's a de facto conditional rezoning that we've placed into the ordinance, which is not good form. And there could even be an argument made that there could be some sort of a board of inaction because you're variancing a section of the ordinance in order to do that. So I think from that perspective, I think this is the right approach moving forward with the subsequent amendment that you're looking at. As well, I also want to make a quick comment on the other two proposed amendments that you're looking at doing. I'm in full support of those as well. And I'm sorry that's not germane to the request before us, but I just wanted that statement made before I had to cut out.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you.
Case. You're
Thanks, Todd.
excused, I guess.
Yeah.
Drive safe.
Does
Thank
it-
you.
Does anyone,
Chair?
yes, please, Commissioner.
Just for clarity's sake, the council's lifted the requirement for the access from Lake Drive for all the lots, R1 or RG, right?
Correct.
So they could be cut a drive and it'll be conforming with whatever the engineering requirements are, and ordinance and so forth, permitting and all that. And then the properties, they have the property that already has a garage to the east,
Yep.
northeast. And the property to the southeast is also a standalone garage in a R1 district, correct?
That is a residence, right?
The residents?
Oh, it's a garage. Not your guys's, the one to the west. Oh, okay. It is just a garage.
Okay. So that has already been received in the past, some kind of conditional use or variance,
That one was grandfathered,
or grandfathered? Okay.
I think in
legal nonconforming, and the only reason I said grandfathered, which is also improper,
That's
is because
understood,
it
though.
was
It's fine.
it's developed in the county, so it just feels.
No, it's understood. I got your point.
because this was the only lot that had approved access to North Lake Drive. Because that's how long before.
Back in the past, yeah, but
Yeah.
now everyone that wants to can have access to their lots.
Yep.
From Lake Drive, okay.
And there was a variance granted for 518 Pheasant Lane to build an unattached garage, but it was in 1989.
Perfect. Thank you, Carla.
My understanding is that someone has obstructed the right-of-way on Pheasant Lane, but is that the city or is it a landowner that's doing that?
That is a landowner, and we have had contact with them and explained that that is not a private drive, that it is a public right-of-way, and that people can use it for access to get to the backs of their lots when they don't have driveways. The thing about it, though, is the city would not issue building permits for any of those properties that don't have access, improved access, which should help that property owner out because we're not encouraging additional traffic utilizing that unimproved right-of-way. Except before driveways are cut in and whatnot, it's still a right-of-way, so it should not be obstructed.
Okay,
And
now-
we have advised the property owner that is doing that is not allowed.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I wasn't sure if that was something in line with this whole trying to discourage access. I understand that we don't want them to drive back there. You know, if we're improving, if we're building garages and those kinds of things, try to access it off of North Lake Drive. I
Yep.
get that, okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff before we open the public hearing?
I do have a couple questions here.
Go ahead.
So we're not going to encourage the creation of Pheasant Lane as a full street installation of curb and gutter. We have a couple of unimproved alleyways throughout town which operate similarly in fashion, right? We're not going to improve these alleyways. They do allow back access to some properties. Are we treating this essentially the same as one of those unimproved alleyways?
I mean, that could be considered as far as if people want to access it, but for primary access, people don't have primary access to alleys either. Then the city wouldn't issue building permits.
Correct, right.
But yes, you are correct that it would be like secondary access.
But we also don't necessarily want to vacate any of this right away. Is that true?
That's true, because if you look to the north, these lots would be landlocked, here that I just highlighted. So a certain portion of it is required, and then there's also sanitary sewer within there. So this is really the only portion of Pheasant Lane that it is of value.
Otherwise inaccessible. I mean, the one that's highlighted, you can't get off of North Lake Drive.
Right.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
go ahead. Oh, sorry.
To Commissioner Dolly's points, those are good points to keep in mind here for future consideration. You know, like that area that Manager Hanton has highlighted there, you know, Pheasant Lane could end in a cul-de-sac there in the future if we wanted it to. I think we as a city just haven't done anything with this. We're not the ones, as you all know, that go in and build the roads. That's the responsibility of the developer. And for whatever reason, decades ago, that didn't occur here. And so we've tried to do what we can in opening up the access on a North Lake Drive to prevent the need of building Pheasant Lane. Preserving that right away for now doesn't seem like an issue. It's nothing of an expense to the city. We're not maintaining anything in there. There aren't any improvements in there. But I do like those comments and, you know, getting creative on what to do with this in the future. Maybe it's when the land to the northwest develops. Maybe it's sooner than then. We don't know. We really don't have a plan in mind for it, but those are definitely good points to consider.
And I'm aware that this is a contentious issue and has been, I think ever since I've been on the planning commission, this is probably the third or fourth time that this issue has shown up in 5 or 6 years. And I know, but my recollection was that the plating goes back to the 70s, so we're, right?
82.
82, okay. So we're going on 45, 50 years of sins, of other people's sins that we're trying to work on. So with that, I will open the public hearing unless anybody else has anything else to say. I thought I heard Commissioner Dolly, but
No, we're good.
Okay, good. I'll open the public hearing. So those in favor to speak, or speak in favor of the amending this to RG, please come forward. And I'll make time for anybody else.
And I actually just wanted to, with Heath's point there about the developing to the northwest, I think too that that's the time that if that would ever annex in, because at this time, even if it were an assessment project, the city couldn't recover those costs from the north until that property were annexed in. So that, just wanted to get that out there as far as what the future trigger could be whenever that property would annex or develop.
Understood. Thank you, Brandy. Public hearing is open. Anybody to speak here in favor of the rezone? I know you guys have been patiently waiting, so please come forward, identify yourself. I apologize it's taken us this long. These meetings tend to be pretty lengthy.
My name is Doug Loggy. I am the owner there, I guess. And I guess basically all we're after is, and I understand that we could put a residence on there. I mean, I could put a structure, I guess, I'm just going to say 60 by 80 with 16-foot sidewalls with a 10 by 10 living quarters in it and have an access to North Lake Drive. That's not what we're after. We're more so just kind of wanting to leave it as is and have the smallest access possible to North Lake Drive, because it's not going to be a everyday occurrence of getting a trailer or a car or anything in and out of there. It's more going to be storage than anything else. And I also understand that the first RG lots there, if ours would become, if it was allowed to be an RG lot, then that would become more compliant with the city statutes. And I'm just here to help on that one. Just kidding. But anyways, I guess as far as the roadway, I guess the access to North Lake Drive, I would just like to keep as minimal, because if you can look at the pictures, there's a lot of trees on there. And if I would remove all those trees, that's going to, a lot of snow and wind is going to come through there, and I don't want that either. So I guess that's about all I have to say.
The other thing too is because they own these adjoining properties. I believe in the resolution for allowing access to North Lake Drive that they would do a shared access that would provide access to both lots, so that we're not having a large amount of access points onto North Lake Drive, just to try to reduce that, or I can't think of words, I'm losing it.
It's been the longest, shortest week.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that, Brandy. Great idea on the shared access. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Would the shared access be, the lot line would be in the division of the shared access? So if you decided to sell one, then you would provide a driveway for the new owner?
Correct. I think that's what we had thought about doing, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
And if it weren't, they can do an access easement as well if it was, but yep, that's a good thought, Bonnie.
We would actually like it to come right off our existing property right over to the other. So it would be pretty much right on that line.
Does anyone else have any questions for the applicants, or the petitioner? Okay, anyone else to speak in favor of, against, of this rezone? We've got some other public members. Please come up and address the board if you would like. You certainly don't have to, but you're welcome to.
I guess what I want to know is.
Please sit down and then identify yourself, just so we know who you are, bud.
Gary Liebel.
Okay, Mr. Liebel?
Yep.
Fire away.
How many residence garages could you have on your property, what you're rezoning?
One.
Well, he's already has one over there. That's what I'm trying to get at. How many can you have? Because to me, then, that's storage facilities.
It's a separate lot.
Well, yeah, so it's a different platted lot.
Okay,
So you got one per lot would be an accurate way of reciting it.
okay. And then I can, you were talking about the trail back there. Okay, my son, what the ordinance was back in the 80s is you had to have an access, or they wouldn't even give you a building permit. And that back lot, actually, that comes off the county, and that's county. And there was actually an access there. But at the time, seeing that was still in city what I want to say is still in city
Limits.
limits. We have to go to the county first and have, basically, they told them that, yes, there is an access there. There's a
Right of way.
right-of-way coming into that property. But the city, at the time, wanted it moved over, and that all had to be put up to grade, which it is. It's grade level off the road, and they moved it, that all got moved over, which he paid for, and put in a double culvert. And as far as I can know, that's the only improvements on Pheasant Lane.
That's my understanding, and I think that's consistent. I believe there's sanitary sewers back there as well.
Correct.
Yeah, in an ideal world where money was unlimited and everyone did what they were supposed to do, the road would have been improved when this was annexed, or shortly thereafter. It wasn't. And we're now going, like I said at the beginning of this discussion, on about 40, 45 years of people's sins. That predates my existence. So I can't tell you why that the road didn't get built. It predates pretty much everyone's employment with the city here. So we don't know why the road didn't get built. We just know that it didn't. But the right-of-way still exists. And the right-of-way, just like the right-of-way in North Lake Drive, I mean, it's essentially the same thing, except for one's paved and one isn't. And then they're both within the city. So I apologize that this has become an issue, or, you know, that it creates hardships, especially for neighbors, but it's a right of way.
The problem with this is, he's the one that maintains it.
I don't know, who's he?
My son, Shane.
Oh,
He
okay.
would have known that, he would have come today.
And as he has to, and I've had discussions with
Right.
Mr. Liebel about this situation, so I don't really want to get into it with the board, because it is, you know, staff is looking at in administering our ordinances, and of whatever the requirements were of the history with it. To get the building permit, he was required to construct that, and that's the same thing that the applicant today for the rezone would have to do, but with further requirements of meeting our engineering design standards today and infrastructure improvements, so.
Brandy, is that the lot that's highlighted that we're talking about?
No, it's the one to the north right there.
Oh, okay, where there's that actual residence.
So same thing, it just is convenient that at least they didn't have to extend it 200 feet, that they were right adjacent to that county road, of only having to extend it to the portion and only to where the driveway is. So the only thing that is private property on this of what he actually owns, even though he improved it, it is still public right of way, and he has to maintain it to be able to get to his house. But this is the concrete driveway, that is private property.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Go ahead, Director Von Eye, sorry, I'll get to you, Commissioner, sorry.
One of the glaring differences to me, if it helps provide some clarity here, is this property that Brandy has highlighted. It was adjacent to that county road, and whatever happened when that building permit was issued some years ago, access was denied onto that county road, and then they were required to improve what I would call, a driveway portion of the right-of-way. Now, the difference being with this lot in question tonight to be rezoned RZ, that does meet all the zoning requirements and subdivision regulations, because it is adjacent to an improved right-of-way along North Lake Drive. And as we've talked earlier, we've recently lifted the moratorium of accesses onto North Lake Drive, which now then allows staff to issue a building permit on this lot because of the improvements that exist in North Lake Drive.
And I think that was kind of the least worst option, right, was that we let them access off of North Lake Drive, given kind of the history, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's not an ideal scenario, but it's better than trying to sort through the.
That house on the north side that Brandy had highlighted, is that in the city limits or is that in the county?
I believe that's in the city limits.
Is that in the city
Yeah.
limits?
What's that?
City utilities
The
and
Northerly
everything?
House is in the
Okay.
city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Platted lot. Well, and I don't want to get too far afield here, because we're now talking about a lot that's a couple hundred feet from the one that's petitioned to be rezoned. So, anybody else? I appreciate your comments, Mr. Liebel.
Well, I got a question for Mr. Liebel.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Spire.
Mr. Liebel? You can sit back there if you like. Yeah. I just want to understand your perspective here. So the petition is for rezoning this lot, and I understand there's no replat that's coming forward at this time. So I heard you had a voice of concern of building another structure if this gets approved, another on that rezone lot. Is that correct?
Yeah, to me, yeah.
And is
I
that
was wondering how many, residential garages you can put on a lot.
right?
I think his main concern is the access, and so I think
Right,
that
and that's
he,
where my next question was going.
Okay.
So you had a concern about the maintenance of the alley access, unimproved access to the other side. And right now, the intent is to put access from North Lake Drive. Would that satisfy any concerns that you have going
Yeah.
forward? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liebel, and thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else to speak on behalf of or against the petition? I see Mr. Wolschlager approaching the bench or the chair, whatever.
podium, I don't know.
My name is Jordan Wolschlager. I have a lot just to the east of their current garage, that lot right there on the map, and I would like to just speak in favor of this being converted to residential garage. I do like the thought of this being a secondary access. I have talked to Brandy about building a garage there myself currently. We do access this currently coming back through Pheasant Lane. It is something that I would continue to like to have access to be going through there occasionally, but we will be building access off of North Lake Drive eventually as well. So for now, though, it is nice to have that access to Pheasant Lane, or I would not be able to use my lot at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Wolschlager. Anyone else to speak on behalf of or against the rezone?
And just to say too, nothing will happen with Pheasant Lane. That would need a petition by all the adjacent landowners if that were proposed to be vacated, just so everyone's informed of that, how that would go forward, so.
Yeah, nothing is happening to the right-of-way. Right-of-way is going to exist as it did this morning. It will exist tonight. So, okay, good.
82.
Any other comments, concerns from anybody else in the public? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and request board approval, and then we'll move to discussion.
Sure, just one more point here. So back to my other point, we're not going to combine these lots, so we're going to have two separate RG lots going forward if we approve this. So the staff's put in the proposal going forward that this would be a compliance if we did this, but they're not combined, so they could be separated. So it's going to still be a non-conforming, is that correct?
That's not. So it's just for the zoning designation. So the two lots that are zoned RG today, they meet the ordinance requirement.
Okay.
Because then they only need 10,000 square feet for their lot size. So it's just the zoning designation that requires the 1 acre.
Okay.
And
Thank
that's
you.
kind of an odd thing, that was more so an efforts to not have spot zoning, to at least have it be an acre, which in turn could be 4 lots, because the minimum lot size requirement is 10,000 for the RG district.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay. I'd request a motion, and then we can have further discussion.
So I'll make a request to approve, given that the usage as it is right now is garage on the existing to the right and left. And I agree with the staff's contention about the spot zoning. It seems to me to make better sense just to make it contiguous going forward, and then further bolstered with the council lifting the prohibition on access from North Lake Drive. For all those reasons, I believe it's a valid request, and I would request that we approve it. Over.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Oletsky. Any further discussion regarding the rezone?
I guess are the two lots going to be put together?
No.
Or they're separate?
The lots will maintain separately. These are two different lots, and they will both be named,
They can't zone them together. I mean, like if you went up to the assessor's office, some people will put them together so they get a break on their lot. So that can't be done?
The assessor will do that separately from what the city does. If they'll treat it as a parcel.
Okay.
We're going to.
They'll treat it as two separate lots.
Yep, so as far as the city's concerned, these are going to be two separately platted lots with, albeit common ownership. Okay, the only comments I would add to the petitioners is just please take care of the bike trail. As a user and a neighbor of you in the area, I use the bike trail a lot. My main concern with access on North Lake Drive was issues with the bike trail. It looks like everyone's been doing a good job so far with these accesses, so let's keep it up. Thank you. With that, any other board discussion regarding the rezone? Brandy, roll call, please.
All right.
Bonnie seconded.
Bonnie seconded. All right, Spire.
Yes.
Culhane.
Yes.
Oletsky.
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
5 in favor, no opposed, motion passes. And we will move on to 6B.
Okay.
Commission consideration of ordinance number 24-15. Please, Brandy.
All right, thank you, Liam. So this, as we've referenced previously in the Board of Adjustment meeting, are the proposed amendments to the non-residential minimum height and placement regulations for primary and accessory structures. So a lot of these ordinance amendments are very straightforward and really actually just reflect what we've been seeing come through for variance requests and just trying to create the consistency, because as I've stated, that's when a ordinance amendment should come forward. And this is part of our whole recodification tour that we're on. And I told you, words are getting hard.
No, it's.
So we also added some clarification for the decks, and we ran into this before too. So like decks adjacent to Lake Compascar, Lake Pelican may observe a 0-foot front yard setback in which decking floor shall not extend above the established grade at the 30-foot front yard setback boundary, except to allow for guardrails limited to the necessary installation. So the idea here is that you get people that want to have a deck because of just how the landscape is or the topography at the lake is, and then technically they're in that front yard setback that they can't be. And so this is just to utilize the topography, and then understanding that people could terrace their entire property all the way out. So this is still upholding, making sure that people are not blocking views, and that the integrity of the ordinance of having a deck be at the setback or comply with the setbacks of a primary structure, still upholding that. So we just run into it, and we just wanted to add clarity with it. It's how it's been regulated, but it just adds clarity.
So the purpose, Brandy, of having it not extend above the established grade, that's one for protecting view. That's the purpose of doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Understood.
So because it's where somebody could terrace anyway.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. Any questions for staff before I open it up?
Chair.
Yeah, question if I may, if we can go back to that illustration, Brandy, on the deck. So the question is, properties can slope both towards the lake, but also slope parallel with it between their property lines. Is this max height at 30 feet off the water line the highest point on their property? Because it could be sloping, from one property line to the other. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, and actually I'm noticing this illustration needs a little work too. Because right now the front yard setback is 30 feet from the ordinary high water mark. So that is where, that's typically where the deck would only be able to extend to. But sorry, Blake, repeat your question maybe.
So in here, we're showing the illustration where it's sloping down towards the lake, right? And that's where the ordinary high water mark is. But that property may also slope side to side on that property.
Yeah.
So 30 foot away from the high water mark on one half of their property might be substantially different in elevation than the other side.
Yep. And so it would go though from the established grade. So whatever it is.
The highest point on their property?
No, only like, so where they want to extend the deck, it's from that point. So you would go 30 feet back from the ordinary high water mark, or wherever I guess you were wanting to extend from, but you couldn't like manipulate the grade to make it higher. It has to be like what the natural grade is.
Yeah, I'm still not understanding it, because that point, that natural grade could be different on one side yard, one side property line versus the other.
Yep. And so
You're showing the slope down towards the water, which is going to be running the length of the property.
yeah, so in a circumstance like that, we could take an average. I just don't really understand when that circumstance would happen. Because it's going to be from the area that they're going to extend the deck, and the deck isn't going to extend from the one side yard to another side yard. So if they're going to extend it and it's going to be 20 feet wide, and it's going to, you know, wherever it's being extended, whatever that grade is, that's the elevation that they could extend it to.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more
Or from.
prevalent in some lots where you do have a pretty substantial shift parallel to the water line, where you might have like a daylight basement, right? A walkout on one half of your property, where the other half, the main floor is sitting on grade. And that's where I think, it's going to get a little bit washy on where that 30-foot back max height is.
Oh, so it would just follow the topography. So if you have a walkout and then you've already terraced, I mean, all of that's going to play a factor, because ultimately somebody could bring in a bunch of fill and terrace their property completely with retaining walls today.
Sure. Yeah.
Commissioner Spear? Sorry.
Yeah, I know it's going late here, but real quickly, kind of to your point, Commissioner Colleen, and somewhat to Commissioner Dolly as well. When I read through these, I'm all in favor of reducing the requirements to what is the minimum required. What I would ask is, just for our help in the Planning Commission, is there's 77 mentions of setbacks in the ordinance. There's not one why. It doesn't tell you what, there's an inference or an assumption, I guess. These are all based on engineering standards. It's either aesthetic, it's topography, it could be hydrology, it could be for visibility. And there's some instances where we do specify on the corners, you got to have setback for clear view. But there's no statement either in the opening section for setbacks why they exist, the why, or in each of the zone-specific ones. And what this causes is a amount of subjectivity when it comes to us. When we have good discussions, we have a lot of great dialogue, and there's a lot of reason that goes into it. But it would be helpful if there was it's not an arbitrary number, 10 foot, 15, 30, or 40. It's 10 feet because, these are the whys.
And that's a good point, Bill, because and the thing to keep in mind is these are minimum. So 10 foot, that is minimum of what we need. It's what we need for code. It's what we need for easements. Right. And like the front yards, that's indicative of a vehicle being able to park so you're not hanging over a sidewalk and things of that nature.
Just an inclusion somewhere, that language would be helpful. It would be great if it was in the zone specifics, because it was 30 foot was the minimum, and that was, acceptable. Now it's 10. Going forward. So I would just like to take a little bit of that arbitrariness out of there.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
I think that makes sense for future boards too.
Any other questions for staff? We still, I think, have a public hearing on this one that I haven't opened. I don't anticipate the public hearing going very long, but any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner
I have
Ford.
a question. Brandy, on the very next page 23, where the C1 districts minimum setbacks are all going from 30 feet to 0 feet. That seems like a significant change. Could you just give us an idea of why that is going from 30 to 0?
So that is the downtown district here where the primary structures are allowed to be 0 foot. So I have always been confused why the accessory structure was 30 feet, because a lot of property, and I know that it could be because we don't want accessory structures, but like if somebody has not maxed out their property with a primary structure and they want to have a shed for storing different things in the back or whatnot, it's something that we want to allow. Because we've had, I think, 3 inquiries this year, and yeah. So it's just to make it consistent with the primary structures.
Great question, Commissioner Ford. Appreciate that. Any other questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone to speak on behalf of or against the proposed ordinance amendments?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Going once, twice, 3 times. I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve, and then we'll have discussion after that.
Make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Spires, sorry.
Spire.
All right.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Oletsky. Do we have any further discussion about the amendments as proposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Director.
I apologize. I didn't get to vet this number particularly with staff, but I was thinking about it through the day. Point to discuss, in the I-1 district, the reduction there for side yards from 25 to 10 feet.
15. Or accessory?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, that would be accessory. What is the primary being changed to, Brandy? Could you clarify?
From 20 to 15.
Okay,
And then the rear is 30 to 15.
okay. I'm just envisioning industrial zones, being vast and expansive like they are. I assume that 15 feet meets all building code, fire code restrictions that we would otherwise have to administer when a building permit application comes in. That's the only one that gave me just a little bit of pause. In a heavy industrial area, do we want buildings that close to each other from a fire, explosive, or whatever consideration? I just thought I'd bring that up for discussion purposes.
Thank you, Director. Do you have any comments, Fire Marshal? 30. So we're talking about closest primary structures being 30 feet and accessory structures, assuming you had 2 accessory structures adjacent to each other, 20 feet would be the max, or min, excuse me. It has been, like I said, the longest, shortest week.
The minimum separation.
That would be the minimum separation. Worst case scenario would be 20 feet on 2 accessory structures.
Yep.
Does that give pause to anybody on the commission? Okay, good enough. Any other discussion regarding the proposed amendments? Brandy, roll call vote, please.
All right. Ford.
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Oletsky.
Yes.
Culhane.
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We are now on to 6D.
All right.
Ordinance 2416.
Okay, thank you, Liam. So as we've discussed with the previous action for the rezone, this is just eliminating that inconsistent language of having the neighbors be involved with the petition for your rezone, when you're rezoning to RG Residential Garage District. And I'll stand by, the other change here too was the sidewall articulation. The reason behind this is when we implemented this ordinance, it was for the design considerations. And when you think about a garage, a typical 2-stall garage is minimally 36 or 32 by 24, whatever in that dimension. So the fact that we would be making somebody do sidewall articulation for when you're just doing the most standard two-stall garage, when any R1 district can have a detached garage today, and the R1 district is the most conservative district, but we would allow for somebody to build a very standard box structure. And the R1 district actually allows for a larger detached garage than the RG district. So this only allows for like 50% of impervious surface can even be, or like it's buildable area. And then the overall square footage, 2180, which is the same as, no, 1260. Oh my gosh. So the maximum size shall not exceed 2180 square feet, which is larger than what is allowed in a standard 9,000 square foot R1 district. However, it's still, if they're going over 40 feet, then they would need to implement articulation, just so you're breaking up the visual aesthetic of a building. So then that is, the figures have been amended, and we're just taking out the language because it's duplicate, and just proposing that change there.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandy. Any further questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone to speak on behalf of or against this particular ordinance change?
I know what, I got a question for you, Brandy. Will the people still get notified? They don't have to sign a petition, but will they get notified?
Yes, that
Okay.
will all still fall under the administration enforcement portion of the ordinance, that everybody within 250 feet will receive notification that a petition has been submitted. Just like, yeah, all the other ones. So I don't know why this one, why they did it, but it's not good. Like, you don't want to create neighborhood tension, or just, we try to avoid that as the city.
Public hearing is open. Is there anyone from the public that wants to talk about this? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and request board action.
I recommend we approve the request going forward.
Motion for approval by Spire,
Second.
second by Dolly. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, Brandy?
All right, Spire,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yep.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate your guys' patience. That brings us to number 7, open public comment. Doesn't appear that anyone is here from the public. Does anybody online want to say anything? Okay, new business, Brandy.
I'm good with new business. I'll just follow up on the 2 things that were brought up last meeting for old business.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandy. Old business?
So it was brought up about where we landed with what we found out about the asbestos abatement for the out at Harmony Hill with the state land there. And it's actually, I'm glad that you brought it up, Bonnie, because I think it is good public knowledge too, because I've actually had a couple questions and inquiry about it. And I did reach out to the DNR, and they had all the documentation that it was properly abated and mitigated. And it was from the demolition of the Harmony Hills Girls School. So it was a school out at Harmony Hill. I think there was confusion that it was like the old middle school or something from in town, that it was hauled out there, but it actually was all on site, and everything was mitigated to state standards. And so it's safe for there to be residences increasing out in that area. But there was a great concern brought up by the board, and good knowledge and information to have now. So I have all of the documentation, and if anybody is interested, I can send it to you. It's 85 pages.
I
Thank
got
you for the
one.
follow-up, Randy.
I got one question on that. Do they come out and just look at it every 10 years or something, make sure nothing's leaking or anything's changed or anything?
I'm not sure what their protocol is, but after they have inspected, once they're closing out a project, it's kind of like an NOI too, that they close it out and nothing's going to change with it. They're going to close out a project, they're going to make sure that it is secure and in perpetuity. So I don't know if they do every so often.
This doesn't leak. The issue is you end up
Yeah.
with fibers in the air. It's a dust related issue. So as long as you don't disturb anything, even once it's been mitigated, you're fine.
That's good. Okay,
So,
that's good
or
to
it's either
know.
been removed or mitigated. Yes, I've dealt with more asbestos than I don't care to. Anyways,
Random
Just one more thing too, Liam. Then Todd had brought up about the South Dakota Planners Association
Yes.
Annual Conference. If anyone's interested in attending, that is October 23rd to the 25th, and that is in Box Elder. So let me know. We did lower the registration fee for Plan Commission members to attend. So by all means, if you would like to, check out the agenda. It is online. If you go to sdplanners.org, and then just let me know as soon as possible. We have reserved some rooms, but then we'll just either have those reserved or cancel. So you have a little time here to decide. But it should be a really good conference.
thank you, Brandy. Any other old business? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
All right, thanks, guys.